home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They got him again!
Sixers.
Bang! It's good! Ball game!
And Flyers.
Tipped in front of the net!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig.
It's good!
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
And he scored!
Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Josh Hennig.
Eagles get good news in a very strange way today. Yes, the Tush Push is staying, but the why it's staying, well, we're going to get into that this hour here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennig hanging out with you at the Ocean Casino Resort Studios. You guys out there can join the conversation. How are you guys feeling about the Tush Push staying put? And for the first time ever, the Eagles will be on HBO's Hard Knocks. The NFL Films cameras will be invading the NovaCare complex. We'll into all that and more this hour. Coming up, Dave Weinberg for a Weinberg Wednesday. Joining me coming up in less than 15 minutes from now. Also at 6:40 tonight, Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. He is back with us, and we'll get his thoughts as well on the big NFL owners meeting result. Like I said, you guys can join the conversation as well. If we have time, we will get to, I thought what Jose Luzardo did was his biggest start of the year last night. And he is now in very rarefied air. If you were one of those people who listened to Mike Gill on the Sports Bash 2 months ago and threw a small wager on Luzardo for Cy Young and Kyle Schwarber for MVP, well, you're feeling pretty good about that little wager today. But before we get to that, Tush Push is here. And I think the how we got here is a huge part of the conversation, right? How we got to this point where, and the reporting on this coming from ESPN.com, Seth Wickersham, Jeremy Fowler, and others is absolutely fascinating to me. Because to give people a little background, Jeffrey Lurie tried to do something that he felt was his big long shot in trying to sway people, the other owners, to his side. His ace in the hole was Eagles legend Jason Kelce. They brought Kelce to the NFL owners meeting, something that was unprecedented. Before he was in Minnesota today, Jason Kelce was on the New Heights podcast and explained why he agreed to go to the NFL owners meeting.
I'm actually going to Minnesota.
What?
So there were some things said at the last owners meeting. Some of the owners and coaches hinted that the reason I stopped playing was because of the Tush Push and that I got hurt on the Tush Push frequently.
What the?
I'm just going to answer any questions people have about my partaking in this play.
And according to ESPN's Seth Wickersham in his in-depth report, apparently Kelce showing up did have an impact because there were some owners who were on the fence who, after hearing from Kelce, had what they called a better understanding of a player's perspective on the play. Now, remember, 2 months ago, we heard from coaches about why they were or were not supporting the decision. Today, we got the owners in a room, and according to the reporting out from ESPN.com that has also been corroborated by others like Diana Rossini of The Athletic, apparently Jeffrey Lurie spoke for about an hour. And there were some individuals who took issue with some of the analogies and some of the examples that were used in his speech. To which then, as the meeting progressed, according to ESPN.com, the owner of the San Francisco 49ers, Jed York, apparently accused the Eagles owner, Jeffrey Lurie, basically being full of, and I will not use the curse word, basically being full of poo. So you have a situation where you have other owners now accusing the Eagles being full of it. You have Jason Kelce showing up to give his side of the conversation. And with all that happened, all this mudslinging, all the accusation for months, it ended up being that they needed 24 votes to get this thing banned, and they only got 22. And the people who sided with the Eagles, this is very parliamentary politics, lobbying for votes. In the privileged session, which Jason Kelce and others were not a part of, apparently, somewhere along the way, the owners who were convinced to vote for this, and I'm not fully sure exactly how this happened, but joining the Eagles were two AFC North teams, the Ravens and the Browns, almost the entire AFC East, the Dolphins, the Patriots, and the Jets. For whatever reason, two teams from the AFC South joined the conversation, the Jags and the Titans. Remember the same Jags team that fired Doug Peterson. And one NFC East team rallied to the Eagles' side, the Detroit Lions. Now, as I told Mike Gill earlier today on 97.3 ESPN, Josh Hennig hanging out with you in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios of Atlantic City, I think the Lions sided with the Eagles out of spite against the Packers. I think that the Lions were like, hey, Packers, we don't like you anyway. You're our division rival, so we're just going to go against you. I think that's what that was about. I don't think the Lions legitimately were like pro or against the Tush Push. But the other teams are interesting because if for whatever reason it was all AFC teams that sided with the Eagles and it was only a plethora of NFC teams that were anti-Philadelphia. So for whatever reason, read into it that the majority of the hate of the Philadelphia Eagles comes from the NFC. Because at the end of the day, this was not about the actual play. This was a spiteful move by NFL teams in collusion with the commissioner of the NFL, who has said multiple times he considers the brotherly shove, the tush push, which more technical term is a quarterback sneak that involves other players aiding the quarterback across the line of scrimmage. That's the technical term for it. It was NFC teams who are angry at the Eagles that they have found that they can do something that the others cannot stop yet. And if you notice, some of the coaches who spoke out against voting against Tush Push, coaches like Todd Bowles, Kellen Moore, and others, their owners voted to ban it. So the coaches didn't even have as much say in this as we previously thought. We'll get into all that and more coming up next. Dave Weinberg joins us for a Weinberg Wednesday, followed by Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press, and your guys' texts coming up here with me, Josh Hennig, on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. And as always, we are live on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig.
Atlantic County is on the move, and the English Creek Tilton Road Fare-Free Community Shuttle will get you where you need to go. Work, medical appointments, family visits, shopping, and more. Every Monday through Friday, the English Creek Tilton Road Community Shuttle links residents to New Jersey Transit buses, serving Egg Harbor Township and Northfield, with stops on Tilton Road, Black Horse Pike, Shore Road, Delilah Road, and English Creek Avenue. For maps and schedules, visit driveless.com. That's driveless.com.
Memorial Day savings are here at the Home Depot. So take your kitchen to the next level with up to 35% off, plus up to an extra $450 off select appliances like LG. Plan your get-togethers with an LG refrigerator you can count on for years to come at the Home Depot. And with the connected ThinQ app, you'll know if the door is left open and when to change the filter. Spend less time worrying this Memorial Day with savings on LG, America's most reliable appliance brand at the Home Depot. Offer valid May 15th through June 4th, U.S. only. See store or online for details.
Progressive knows there are some surprisingly expensive things in life, like frames. Because you found a classic 70s concert poster. But when you went to get it framed, you realized the frame will cost about 4 times the amount of the poster. Which is actually absurd because no one will be looking at the frame, and if they are, then you severely overestimated how cool this poster is. But then you remember by switching your home and auto to Progressive, you could save hundreds and put it towards a classic 70s concert poster in an absurdly overpriced frame. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
This is the story of the one. As a lineman, he does whatever it takes to keep the power on in his community. And he wants a partner like Grainger who does the same. Grainger offers the professional-grade products he needs, from voltage detectors to harnesses to hard hats, plus fast, dependable delivery, so he can rise to every challenge. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Progressive Insurance presents the Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN. NFL owners rejecting a proposal presented by the Green Bay Packers that would ban the Tush Push play made popular by the Eagles. The proposal wanted to ban the pushing or pulling of a ball carrier forward at any point during the play, not just immediately after the snap. The proposal fell short of the 24 votes needed to pass. The Phillies and Rockies continuing their series tonight at Coors Field in Denver. Phillies winning Tuesday 7-4, have now won 5 in a row. Ace Luzardo now 5-0 on the year. Taijuan Walker getting the start for the Phillies tonight, 1-3, an ERA of 2.62. Carson Palmquist making his second start will go for Colorado. NFL playoffs tonight, the Knicks hosting the Indiana Pacers for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. On Tuesday night, the Western Conference Finals began, Oklahoma City winning at home against Minnesota. Progressive Insurance, bundle auto and home, renters or condo, and save with Progressive. I'm Tony Desiri, and that's your Sports Flash on 97.3 ESPN.
2 guys drove to work. Neither guy wore a seatbelt. One guy got a ticket. One guy didn't. The same 2 guys drove home. One guy wore a seatbelt. One guy didn't. One guy made it home. The guy not wearing his seatbelt didn't. Don't risk it. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow. Tonight stays wet, then tomorrow's forecast trending a little bit drier. We'll see periods of rain and wind tonight, and as this storm system intensifies a little bit, could be some pockets of heavy rain out there. Low temperature 52. Rain breaks apart, becoming more scattered by midday tomorrow, so we'll see pockets of dry weather with generally wet weather. Still cool tomorrow, high 58. Mostly cloudy with spotty drizzle Friday, warming up to 62. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
Anyone can struggle with addiction. And when you're struggling, there's no shame in getting help.
Call 844-REACH-NJ. Talk to a counselor for confidential addiction help and see if you're eligible for no-cost treatment. 844-REACH-NJ from New Jersey Human Services.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
We'll check back in the text board in just a bit. George from Summers Point and more at 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. CL, as promised, right now joining us, it is Dave Weinberg for another Weinberg Wednesday Extra Point columns at 97.3ESPN.com. Dave, I see you're in the car, so I'm assuming you are down at Gusto in North Cape May?
You assume correctly.
I have a buddy of mine who's trying to distract me right now because apparently Gusto has a new brew out, and he keeps blowing up my phone about it. So I'm going to try to ignore him and talk to you, okay?
Which one is it, do you know?
It's the collab they did with the Seed. So.
Oh, okay. All right.
So let's get into this, Dave. So the Tush Push survived the NFL voters today, only by 2 votes.
Yeah.
But what I found was interesting, Dave, was that basically the entire NFC voted against the Eagles, and it was only AFC teams and the Lions who rallied with the Eagles against it.
Yeah, I was a little surprised too. I honestly thought it was going to be banned. It just seemed like there was such a groundswell of support behind them, supporting the ban, and the Packers specifically. So, I was a little mildly surprised that that's still around, but good for the Eagles, and hopefully they can keep taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I feel like the Lions basically were telling their rival, the Packers, to go take a long walk on a short pier. I feel like that's what that vote was.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, that rivalry's pretty intense. Yep.
But I mean, like basically almost the entire AFC East basically voted with the Eagles. And I think it's interesting is that it obviously goes to show you, Dave, that a lot of this had nothing to do with the play at all. It had to do with people were just anti the Eagles doing it, basically, is what happened. Because why then would every NFC team, except for the Lions, vote against it when some of those teams have coaches like Todd Bowles and Kellen Moore who have publicly said that those coaches themselves were not against it, but their owners voted against it.
I guess that means that Jeffrey Lurie isn't the most popular guy among owners. I don't know why that would be. I mean, he's not really controversial or anything. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so in the article that came out today from ESPN.com, because they had some reporting on it. Apparently, the owner of the 49ers basically told Jeffrey Lurie that he's full of bleep. So.
Wow. Huh. That's some strong language. Okay. All right. Oh, wow. Okay. Why? Because what Jeffrey said about the injury being in that injury possibility being a non-factor and stuff like that, or was it go beyond the Tush Push?
I think it was mostly to do with the Tush Push play. Lurie apparently took up an hour of the meeting doing like a presentation about, and they brought in Jason Kelsey.
Right,
Kelsey showed up and. Apparently, the 49ers owner, Jed York, basically was over the whole thing, and some of the other owners were very, contentious with him over the issue.
Okay, yeah, he probably maybe went over the line a little bit as far as his presentation and stuff, but that's kind of weird because I think Jason's been quoted as saying that the play was really taxing on him physically and really kind of wore him down because of all the stuff behind, going on and.
Well, here's the thing. Jason showed up because he says that some of the information out there has been false in interpreting what he said. This is what Jason said on his... So the New Heights podcast came out this morning, minutes before Jason walked into this meeting. So this is brand new stuff that came out from Jason on the New Heights podcast this morning.
I'm actually going to Minnesota.
What?
So there were some things said at the last owners meeting. Some of the owners and coaches hinted that the reason I stopped playing was because of the Tush Push and that I got hurt on the Tush Push frequently.
What the?
I'm just going to answer any questions people have about my partaking in this play.
And apparently Art Rooney of the Steelers told ESPN's Jeremy Fowler that he actually felt more educated about the play after Jason came in and talked to the owners than he did before. But the Steelers owners still voted against it. So obviously Kelsey didn't have that big of an impact.
Right. Yeah. I know. I know. I never suspected that Jason retired because of that, but it just seems like the very nature of the play, though, probably puts a lot of wear and tear on a center. You got all the hundreds of pounds of guys, ramming into you, and then frequently you're on the bottom of a pretty heavy pile there too. So I could see where he might get, a little worn down by it. I mean, I never thought he was going to retire because of that, but yeah, that's kind of interesting that the way the voting went. I don't know. I just thought that I didn't think they'd have any trouble getting the 24 votes, but evidently, I guess I was wrong. Does this mean that it's like the issue's done, or does it get revisited in a year, or
So it can, another team now can introduce it next year, the change. So it's like, now it's like, I guess, so there are 22 teams that voted against Tush Push, right? So now one of the 21 other teams can propose it next year.
Oh, okay. This is going to be a recurring theme then. Okay.
I think it is, because the reporting came out today that apparently the NFL went to the Packers and asked them to propose this rule change.
Oh, no kidding. Oh, huh.
Yeah. So,
I mean, it's going to make for an interesting game when the Eagles visit Lambeau this year, I guess.
Well, that was my question earlier, Dave. Dave Weinberg joining us for a Weinberg Wednesday here on 97.3 ESPN. What's the over-under on Tush Pushes on Monday Night Football when they go to Green Bay?
Yeah, I got a buddy of mine who suggested that you do the Tush Push every play. That's a little over the top, but I wouldn't be surprised if they use it more than usual.
I do think that there's going to be certain games you'll see it more than others. I genuinely do. And I think there will be games that people will think they're going to run it, Dave, and they purposely will not run it. Because I think the Eagles are going to be in full spite mode this year with it.
Yeah, I could see that. Definitely see that. There's probably going to be some variations of it where you've seen it in the past where they, fake the Tush Push and roll out and throw a pass or stuff like that, or hand it off to somebody. Yeah, I definitely think there's going to be more variations of it.
Yeah, and especially considering, one of the things that Jalen Hurts mentioned yesterday when he talked to the media, Dave, was about how he literally named the new quarterback coach, Scott Loeffler, did Jalen. And he overtly said, oh, yeah, he's bringing in new ideas for the offense. So, you know how those college coaches are. They get a little, gadgety. So I'm almost wondering, you mentioned what they might do off of that play. Does Scott Loeffler walk into the room with Jalen Hurts and Kevin Patullo, and he's pitching out maybe his idea for a Tush Push fake, and maybe Jalen Hurts is like, ooh, I like that.
Yeah, that could be. Yeah, like you say, college coaches are known for their creativity and like not gadget plays, but I guess trick plays and offshoots of certain things and formations. And high school and college, you usually get at least one crazy play a game. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
By the way, we should also mention, in typical Eagles fashion, as you would know, Dave, from covering the Eagles for all the years that you did on the beat, the Eagles went out of the way to try to steal the headlines on Monday by announcing they were giving Nick Sirianni a contract extension because, the Eagles cannot let anybody else in the city be talked about any more than they should. So,
yeah, I was a foregone conclusion that was going to happen, but yeah, you're right. They tend to dominate the headlines or the attention. They don't like to share it with anybody. So yeah, that's definitely true.
Yeah, and like you said, we all knew it was going to happen. But then it was like, it was like we were talking too much about the Phillies, Sixers, and Flyers over the weekend. So the Eagles were like, all right, Monday, we're going to drop this on everybody, kind of thing.
I mean, not surprising, but, everybody assumed it was a foregone conclusion. They probably weren't thinking that after last year, though, right? I mean, after 2023. The way they fell apart and stuff. It seems like there were questions about whether Sirianni was even going to survive the offseason. And now all of a sudden he's, the greatest thing since, I don't know, sliced bread, if you want to put it that way. But, yeah, I mean, what a difference a year makes, right? I mean, he was really on the hot seat, it seemed like. Anyway, maybe the Eagles they'll insist differently, I'm sure, that he was never in danger of losing his job. But, yeah, he's definitely like the top dog right now, though. No question about that.
I just don't understand the people who still will not acknowledge that he won a championship, because there are still people out there, Dave. Well, I mean, I don't think you're in the same category, because I don't think you're the person who says, the Eagles won, in spite of, I don't feel
True,
like your
true.
your
No, I'm not.
criticism of Sirianni has been more about them firing Doug when they
Yes.
did, and
Correct.
then acting like Sirianni was some savior. So I'm not sure if I put words in your mouth, but I always felt like your position was always the Eagles tried to act like Doug didn't win the Super Bowl when they hired Nick.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely right. And it's just, I don't question Nick's success or his accolades at all, but it's just the guy's personality just grates on me to no end. I just, act like a grown up for goodness sakes. I just the childish stuff, the tantrums on the sideline, and then arguing with your own fans, and I don't know. That's the stuff that bothers me more. I mean, the X's and O's that you can't argue with their success, right? So, but yeah, that's not the off the field, but the on the field sideline
The
stuff is
antics.
really great. Yeah, that grates on me more than anything.
And I thought, Mike Gill was talking with Jeff Mosher earlier today, and he said that, he would describe Sirianni as sometimes acting like an Eagles fan from Delco on the sideline instead of like a football coach.
Yep, definitely true. Yep, or you could probably throw some South Jersey fans in there too. But yeah.
The other Eagles news today, Dave, for the first time ever, the Eagles will be on Hard Knocks. The NFC East will be featured on the in-season edition of Hard Knocks. So that means for the first time, Dave, the NFL Films cameras with Hard Knocks are going to be following the Eagles around in season. Now, I remember there was the in-season documentary in 2019, but that was Amazon Prime, and that was a very limited sample size. We know with Hard Knocks, there's a lot more access, a lot more footage, a lot more opportunities to expose people like we saw with the Giants, right? A couple of years ago. So, but for the first, Jeffrey Lurie, he's held this off for 25 years, and now finally they're walking into the building with those cameras.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised. So do you have to get permission, I guess, right, to be on it?
Yes and no.
The Eagles had to say okay or no?
It's a kind of a half and half. I don't know this for a fact. What I know for a fact is the way it works is the in-season, the teams have to agree to it. And apparently the new agreement, because they did this last year too, where the in-season is there's less focus on one team. That's why the AFC North agreed to it last year. Now the NFC East is doing it this year. So I think it's kind of like all four teams are like, all right, well, if it's not just on me and it's on the other three too, I'm okay with it. So I think that's part of the reason why it's more palatable. I'm sure there's some stupid, small type in some sort of TV contract somewhere, Dave, that tells them that at some point the Eagles are going to have to say yes to it at some point.
Right. It's going to be very interesting because the Eagles are very much into controlling the narrative of everything that goes in or comes out of their franchise and their organization. I mean, you see it even on a daily basis where there's very restricted access in terms of media to practices and things, and you get you get more time in the locker room interviewing players and stuff, but it's I'm going to be really interested to see how much access HBO actually gets and how that reflects. Maybe, I don't know, the Eagles will, if they share it with the other three teams equally, or maybe there's less of them. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see how they control it, if they can control it.
I mean, last year with the AFC North, it was pretty even. They have it pretty evenly distributed, but it also wasn't like the traditional following them every single day. It was more like highlighting storylines. Like there was one episode last year just about the Jameis Winston Steelers-Browns game in the snow. And that whole episode was leading up to why is Jameis the starter? What are the Steelers doing to prepare for him? And all of that went into that game. There was another episode where it contrasted the Eagles, Steelers, and the Eagles Bengals games, where it kind of showed here's how the Bengals prepared, here's how the Steelers. There was that famous clip where the one Steelers coach basically said some stuff, we'll call it, about the Eagles quarterback and running back, and basically criticized the Eagles. And then we all have the famous opening of Hurts's presser. Remember where he said, "Is that what you guys wanted?" After the big passing game. So that was played up pretty heavily on the Hard Knocks last year.
Right. Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, you're right.
So, I mean, I think that's what the Hard Knocks is going to be a little more like. Now, they haven't announced the exact start date, but we know last year started in December. This year, they say it'll start in December. So it looks like it's going to be still that weekly release, one episode each week. So it'll be interesting. My hope, Dave, I want the first episode to contrast week 1 Eagles-Dallas with the Dallas Eagles game in, what was it, week 12, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. So kind of like, draw that. I want that to be the first episode. Eagles-Dallas be the first episode.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how they, compare and contrast, like you said, playing in September as opposed to playing in December, the progress of each team. Dallas might be in the dumps by then. I don't know, or they might be arguing. Jerry Jones might be feuding with somebody or other. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see the differences between the two.
Yeah, I don't think the Cowboys are going to survive. I have no faith.
You're not the only one.
I have no faith in Brian Schottenheimer, a first-time NFL head coach. I think that George Pickens is going to implode that locker room. Mm-hmm. They are going to miss. Remember, no DeMarcus Lawrence in Dallas this year. He left for Seattle. So I think Dallas is going to have some problems this year. And can you imagine how quickly that thing will unravel if they lose that first game of the year?
Yeah, as we mentioned before, I mean, Pickens to Dallas, and that's he could very well implode that locker room, because I don't know that there's a strong enough leadership contingent there that could, not put him in his place, but control him a little bit. Whereas, if he came to the Eagles, for example, he would never get away with that kind of stuff.
No.
He just doesn't have there's just people in that locker room that wouldn't permit it. And I'd be interested to see if, CeeDee Lamb or Dak Prescott or whoever is able to, to rein him in a little bit when things go wrong, which they will.
Also, don't forget Micah Parsons has a podcast.
There you go.
That I'm sure that'll be fodder for the Hard Knocks guys as well. It's like free content right there. He's Dave Weinberg, of course. Dave Weinberg 19 on the X platform, Extra Point Columns at 97.3 ESPN.com. And he joins us each and every week for conversations here on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, I'll let you get back to Quizzo down there at Gusto Brewing.
My pleasure, Jeff. Thanks as always. I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you next week.
Absolutely. Josh Hennig back here in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios on 97.3 ESPN. Let's hit the text board real quick before we hit the break. We have George in Summers Point at 609-403-0973 says, hey, Josh, with the way the vote went down for the Tush Push, no NFC East teams voting in favor of it. I hope the Eagles jam the play down their divisional opponents' throats this season. Go Birds! That's from George in Summers Point. George, I do think there is going to be a heavy amount of scenarios where the Eagles are going to run that play, maybe a little ad nauseum, maybe a little, to the point where people are going to get mad at them, because there are a lot of people who didn't want that play to stick. Stephen Marmora chimes in on the text board, says the Eagles play 13 out of 14 teams that voted against the Tush Push. I hope they run the heck out of it against them. The other thing, Stephen Marmora, is of those 13 or 14 teams that voted against it, look at the one team that did vote for it was the Lions. You don't think that the Lions are aware that the Eagles are going to be on a revenge tour with this? You don't think the Lions might have said, you know what? We don't want to be the team that makes our lives more difficult. You know what I'm saying? You don't think that the Lions weren't maybe playing a little bit of chess while the rest of the league is playing checkers, if you know what I mean? They know. They're aware. I think the other teams, they were so against the play, so against the Eagles, they couldn't see the forest for the trees. They couldn't see the fact that vengeance is coming. Okay? There is going to be a part of the Eagles this season that have circled the Packers game and that have circled some of these other games on their schedule, and they're going to be more than up for those games. And, of course, you can hear every Eagles game right here on your home for Eagles football in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN FM. Coming up on the other side, more football talk. Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. Get a national perspective on the Eagles, the Tush Push, Hard Knocks, and more Rob Maaddi joins us next on 97.3 ESPN.
With GMF financing, qualified buyers excludes Traverse and Corvette excludes prior sales.
It's Bennett Chevrolet's Memorial Day blowout with prices that won't be beat. That's right, Bennett Chevrolet selling new Chevys at GM supplier employee prices. And you keep all the rebates, saving you as much as 20%. Who else can make an offer this good? Nobody. That's who. Get to Bennett Chevy's Memorial Day blowout all this month and save up to 20% on new vehicles with GM supplier employee pricing. And you keep all the rebates. Plus, you'll save even more with Bennett's available 0% financing. And if you're looking for your best deal on pre-owned, Bennett's paying a minimum $10,000 for any trade, no matter the mileage or condition. You'll get at least 10 grand towards any pre-owned. Imagine how much more Bennett pays for a good trade. And there's no need to negotiate. Never any haggles or hassles, because our non-commissioned sales team is paid on your satisfaction, not how much you spend. Together, let's drive. Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Get Memorial Day appliance savings at the Home Depot with up to 35% off, plus up to an extra $450 off select appliances like Whirlpool that can keep up with your busy routine. Whether storing weeknight dinners or packing coolers for the next sports practice, the Home Depot has the Whirlpool refrigerator with storage and ice capacity for everything you need to keep up. Celebrate Memorial Day with savings on select appliances at the Home Depot. Offer valid May 15th through June 4th, U.S. only. See store or online for details.
Make a big splash this season while you keep it cool and sweet with the most shareable cookies and frozen snacks under the sun. Restrictions apply.
For one night only, be a part of the magic that is the Australian Bee Gees Show, a tribute to the Bee Gees. Head to Golden Nugget Atlantic City Saturday, June 7th, and sing along to their greatest hits, such as Stayin' Alive, More Than a Woman, Night Fever, and many more. Don't miss this authentic take on the Brothers Gibbs clothes, style, moves, and music. Experience the Australian Bee Gees Show live at Golden Nugget Saturday, June 7th. Visit Ticketmaster.com to purchase your tickets.
One guy made it home. The guy not wearing his seatbelt didn't. Don't risk it. Click it or ticket. Paid for by NHTSA.
It's time to make your yard the best on the block with Memorial Day savings at the Home Depot. Start by keeping the weeds at bay with Earthgrow mulch, now 4 for $10. Then keep your garden thriving with Miracle-Gro garden soil, now on special buy, 4 for $10. Give your neighbors yard envy all summer long with Memorial Day savings going on now at the Home Depot.
Join us at Camp Edge in Alloway on Saturday, May 31st from 9 to 2 for the Ranch Hope Levi Baldwin Memorial Fishing Tournament and Family Fun Day. While fishing registration is closed, there's still plenty to enjoy, like food trucks, local vendors, outdoor activities, and more. Come celebrate the day by the lake and support Ranch Hope's mission to serve children, youth, and families from all over the state of New Jersey. Learn more at ranchhope.org.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
All the scrutiny that he's gotten, and to be able to come back every year and preach the message, but also correct his mistakes and show accountability. He's always me first, then you. And when you have a coach who allows even the players, it's not coaching led. He says too, it's not coaching led, it's player led. He gives us our space to be able to create that culture as well. And we feed off that. We bounce off each other. And so he means incredibly a lot to me, but also this team, this franchise.
That was Jordan Mailata yesterday when he has more to say than that, but he was asked about, why do you support Sirianni? Why do you and the players like this guy so much? It's been a busy week for the Eagles. Nick Sirianni gets a contract extension. Everybody's in the building for OTAs. And, of course, this morning, the Tush Push survives the vote. And then for the first time, the Eagles will be a part of Hard Knocks. Well, who would have ever thought that on May 21st, Rob Maaddi, we would have so much NFL news to get to, as Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press joins us right now here on 97.3 ESPN. Rob, I appreciate you carving out some time. How you doing today?
Doing well, Josh, and you're right. I didn't expect May 21st to be such a busy time. I'm in the middle of the one day of work in long vacation, but I knew that this was going to be the spring meetings day, and I didn't go to Minneapolis because it's Remy and I's anniversary the other day. So my colleague in Minneapolis and Minnesota is handling all of that stuff, but I'm dealing with it on the phone and texting and calling and talking to people at the league and the sources and everything else. And I was surprised, to be honest with you, because it looked like everything was trending towards a Tush Push ban, and then ultimately they needed to get to 24 and they couldn't.
So for you, realistically, Rob, how much do you think the Jason Kelce showing up actually did impact things? Or do you think some of those teams who voted against it were going to vote against it all along?
So I was charting along the way, right? Starting at the combine and then the meetings in April, was it? End of March in West Palm Beach. Just every time talk to a different team. What do you think of the Tush Push? I knew what Todd Bowles felt, knew what the Buccaneers felt, knew what Nick Caserio and the Texans felt, knew what where the Buffalo Bills stood, knew where this team, the Packers, stood, knew where, and then there were also sometimes, Josh, where it was like, all right, well, the coach feels strongly, but maybe the GM feels a different way, and ultimately the owner is going to cast the ballot. So who's going to vote this way? Who's going to vote that way? I knew the Eagles had at least the support of 5 or 6 teams. So then you get to, can they get the 3 more? They needed to get to 9, right? And they ultimately got to 10. Could Jason Kelce have swayed one team? Could he have swayed 2? There's a possibility. I'm not going to discount that with as passionate of a pleas I'm sure he put forth in that, but also Jeffrey Lurie. He spoke for almost an hour, and he really laid it out there too. And I think the way it comes down to is this. There are a lot of people who, and Rich McKay, the competition committee chairman, said this back at the end of March and April. They just don't have the data from an injury standpoint. So while the health and safety committee can say we're trying to get ahead of it, Rich came right out and said this is really from an aesthetics point of view. There are a lot of people who don't like the look of the play as a football play. And do we want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now as an NFL to look back and say we allowed this ugly, non-aesthetic play to be part of the history of the league? Because the Eagles are Super Bowl champions and they depended upon the Tush Push for a significant amount of success on 4th and short, 3rd and short, whatever it may be when they needed that play. And there are a lot of folks in the NFL who don't want to see that continue. And they couldn't get 24 owners to agree with them. So it's going to live for another year. And I wonder if it's even going to be put up for a vote next year, because you have to go through the proposal process. What changes other than if there are significant injuries? If there are significant injuries and you already couldn't pass it in 25, why should they even bring it up for a vote in 26 unless the injury data changes?
Well, that leads me to the other thing I wanted to ask you about, Rob, because there's multiple reporting out there that there were some contentious moments during that meeting this morning between the owners and Jeffrey Lurie. And people don't really think of Lurie as like a controversial guy, right? It's Jerry who's the controversial guy. But even, there's reporting out there that the 49ers owner basically accused Lurie being full of bleep, and, that caused some tension in the room. So, like, is there going to be any ramifications from this among the owners of anything negative against the Eagles potentially?
I think when you have you got a lot of billionaires and multimillionaires in a room, and in order to get to that point of success in your life, you have to be strong-willed, strong-minded, type A personalities in a lot of cases, right, Josh? So you're going to have opinions and strong ones, especially from Jeffrey Lurie's standpoint, where this impacts his team. And he's got the floor and he's got the ability now to have a say where he can sway one or two guys. Can there be some hard feelings? I'm sure at some point maybe teams are gonna one guy's gonna feel a certain way towards somebody, but I think all of that stuff will eventually fade because it's GMs have to deal with GMs, team presidents deal with team presidents, coaches deal with coaches, players versus players. Not every owner is gonna like every owner in a room, and some may hold a grudge. Maybe some may have some hard feelings for a certain length of time, but I think all of that stuff will disappear and fade. But it sure is going to be fun to hear about it, to talk about it, all of that fodder, and then when the Eagles face some of these teams that really had an issue with it, like whenever the Eagles are going to play the Packers, and the schedule's not in front of me right now, and I sadly didn't memorize it. So.
Monday Night Football, Rob.
Well,
Week
right.
11.
When is it again? December?
November
11. I haven't committed the schedule to memory yet, so that's going to be fun when the Eagles run the tush push against the Packers, and I'm sure there'll be somebody who said take that or whatever. Maybe it's Nick Sirianni after they walk off the field and he points to somebody in the front office the Packers don't have an owner, right? They're the only team that doesn't have an actual owner you can direct your venom towards. But and Mark Murphy's out; he's the outgoing team president. He's not going to be in place this year. So I'm sure there'll be some of that at some point.
Talking with Rob Maaddi here on Game Night. Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, Rob covers the NFL for the Associated Press at Rob Maaddi on the Twitter X platform. You mentioned Sirianni and the antics. I got to get your perspective on him because, I got people texting in like Dan and EHT saying, that's what I like most about Sirianni. He's wound differently. He's a unique personality. And so, you hear the Eagle players, they love this guy. Jordan Mailata, A.J. Brown saying, as long as Sirianni's here, I want to be in Philadelphia. Jalen Hurts saying that Sirianni's earned everything that he's been given. The players are backing this guy. But it's people outside the building that have a problem with the guy. So, knowing what Rob, what does it say to you that literally the only people who dislike Nick Sirianni, all are outside the NovaCare complex?
It's been that way for 4 years, Josh. And I've been one of those who's supported Nick since day one. And I put the stat up yesterday. I think he's now 52-18. I got to go back to Twitter and look at that. But he's 50. I think it's 52-18 with 2 Super Bowl appearances and a Vince Lombardi trophy and a massive new contract since the flower analogy that had some people in Philly wanting to fire him, including prominent columnists whose name I'm not going to mention at this moment. I mean, literally wanted him fired for a flower analogy that I thought is. Did you find it? Is it up
I did.
there?
Yep, 52-18.
Yes, I committed that to memory. I'm going to keep that one right at the top of my mind. But it's always been the people on the outside. He's a coach that players really can gravitate towards, and sometimes there's some players he can irk in certain ways, and then a lot of players though can get behind him, and it's been that way since he's been there. Most of the noise has been outside the building, sometimes in the Philly media market, and certainly on a national level. He was called a clown on ESPN by was it Damian Woody? I think it was Damian Woody,
yeah.
Right? They called him a clown. They said, and other more prominent national TV personalities have absolutely dumped all over Nick Sirianni. And I've always wondered, did they apologize? At any point, were they held accountable for their rantings or for their hot takes where they were able to come on and say he should be fired, or he doesn't know what he's talking about, or he's a terrible head coach and he's a terrible leader and he's this and he's that? Were any of those folks held accountable? No, they get to just move on to another terrible hot take, and Nick Sirianni just goes on and continues to win and win and win and win some more, and now he's got a Vince Lombardi trophy. So kudos to Nick for being able to get to the point that he's at, the pinnacle of the NFL, and for everybody else out there with an opinion, and most of them have been negative along the way. We all know what opinions are like. Everybody has one.
Well, the other part of what the flower analogy, Rob, is the other part that you have in your original tweet that you quote tweeted, which is that was when he handed the play calling to Shane Steichen. Sirianni, since he admitted, I'm not good at something, I'm going to give someone else the job because they can do it better. It's when Sirianni has admitted, this is what I'm great at, this is what I'm not great at. Isn't that really what it comes down to, Rob? Because you mentioned in your tweet about how, for those listening on the radio, you mentioned excellent life lesson then and now. Isn't part of the life lesson, Rob, knowing what your strengths and weaknesses are, knowing what you can and can't do, and basically becoming a better version of yourself through that process?
100%, Josh. That's part of being a great leader, is realizing what your strengths are, what someone else's strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and maybe giving some of those responsibilities, some of those duties to others on your staff. Being a great leader is knowing when to act and knowing when to take a seat, knowing when to stand up, knowing when to sit down, speak out, be quiet. Like, there's a lot of leadership ability in great leaders can recognize when, hey, I may need help in this area. I'm better, someone else is better equipped to handle it. And Nick recognized that early on. And he was able to, that was a 2-5 team in 2021. They went and finished 9-8, made the playoffs, and I think that was Brady's last playoff win. They lost to Tampa Bay that year, come back and go to the Super Bowl next year. And we know everything else that's happened since then. But it began with something as it's a huge recognition on the part of Nick Sirianni to be able to say, hey, I'm not doing a great job right now calling these plays. Let's see what Shane Steichen can do with it. And Shane Steichen eventually, after the 22 season, gets a head coaching job out of it.
Yeah, then Kellen Moore got a head coaching job out of his stint as well. So apparently, if you want to be a head coach in the NFL, go be Nick Sirianni's offensive coordinator. Apparently, is the pathway.
No doubt, no doubt.
Rob, before I let you go, I got to ask you about the other news today, which is for the first time the Eagles will be on Hard Knocks. And that, it was like for 25 years, right? Jeffrey Lurie kept those cameras out of the building. And now we're going to have the NFC East for an in-season Hard Knocks. I got to tell you, Rob, this is going to be absolute must-see television. I know it's on a streaming platform, but I'll still call it must-see television because there are so many storylines with the NFC East this year outside of just the Eagles. And the fact that you're going to have at least 8 episodes of them covering the NFC East, I mean, this is like, I don't even know how to call it except for historic.
Yeah, Nick Sirianni being Nick Sirianni unplugged and hearing what he has to say behind the scenes is going to be entertaining in and of itself. Just watching the Jalen Hurts and how much coverage he's going to get on Hard Knocks, and some of the other guys, Saquon Barkley, Jordan Mailata maybe singing songs somewhere in the locker room, and A.J. Brown reading books, and the Eagles in and of themselves, beyond the other teams in the NFC East, are, as you said, must-watch TV, or I don't even know the streaming platform it's going to be on. But it's going to be this is going to be a fun one for sure. And I don't normally have not paid much attention to Hard Knocks in the past. Watched some highlights here and there. I'll make sure I get this one.
By the way, the other one is the Bills will be on Hard Knocks preseason for the first time. Hard Knocks training camp. So a lot of firsts for Hard Knocks this year. It's going to be wild. By the way, it's HBO Max is the
okay.
platform that it's on. To which half the Eagle fandom now is double checking they actually have a subscription to HBO Max.
Yeah, I don't, but I have all the NFL stuff. Maybe I get it through there. We'll figure it out.
Listen, whatever you got to do to get what you got to do, I say do it. I mean, I literally keep my cell phone provider because I get free MLB TV every year. So, I mean,
Yeah, you know what? And I didn't realize my wife has that same, and daughters have that cell phone provider. I didn't realize it and paid for it anyway on my own. I could have had free MLB TV, but I still MLB TVs would get. It's my favorite thing in life, and I love when the Phillies are playing later games, so I can have it on in the background later on into the night. Because I do most of my baseball watching from 10 to midnight.
So what you're really saying is next year your wife is going to remind you not to spend that extra money on the MLTV because she's going to give you her login, right?
That's all I need. Yeah, I don't have to pay whatever the heck I paid for this year. So
yeah, I get that. I get Hulu, Disney Plus, ESPN bundle, like basically half price, basically. So
it's good intel, Josh. I don't pay attention to these things. I need to know. I need to do better.
Listen, man, if you ever need to know how to save money on something, I'm the guy you ask, okay?
All right. I'm going to come to you with that question because I'm tired of waste.
Haste makes waste, and so does not paying attention, Rob.
Absolutely.
He's Rob Maaddi. Of course, covers the NFL for the Associated Press at Rob Maaddi on the Twitter X platform. And, of course, he is the host of Faith on the Field, heard Saturday and Sunday mornings right here on 97.3 ESPN. What do you got, Rob?
Tristan Wirfs, this week's guest, and he does talk about the Tush Push in our conversation on Faith on the Field. Big supporter of it. Tristan Wirfs, as the Buccaneers and Todd Bowles were. So Tristan Wirfs coming up on Faith on the Field this weekend.
Even though the owner voted against it.
Yeah, going against his head coach. Yeah. Going against his head. Yeah.
How does that conversation go? You know, the next time, who's that Glazer,
and
right?
I think there's a lot of teams like that. I think there's a lot of teams. Again, head coach, GM, and then they feel a certain way, and then it's ultimately that's why it was owners only. Everyone else cleared out.
Yeah,
so.
They made everybody else get out of the room so the owners could finish the conversation and vote.
Yep.
What was the term they called? The privileged meeting?
Privileged session.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, you're privileged enough to own an NFL. Only 32 people are privileged enough to be the majority owner of an NFL franchise. Well, it's not really 32, right? If it's husband and wife team, so it's max 64.
Oh, don't forget, Josh Harris's wife said that Washington is now America's team.
Is that right?
Yeah.
The Cowboys sure aren't.
Yeah. Well, she claims that the Washington Commanders is now America's team, according to Josh Harris's wife. Okay. Find that what you will. Rob, always appreciate you jumping on. We'll look forward to Faith on the Field with Tristan Wirfs. Big man, Tristan Wirfs.
Yes.
This weekend on 97.3 ESPN. Rob, appreciate you jumping on. Great conversation.
You got it, Josh. Appreciate you. Take care.
Josh Hennig back here in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios on 97.3 ESPN. A couple texts before we get out of here. Jeff from Ocean City says, "Cry me a river, you Tush Push wimps." Good work there by Jeff. Dan in the EHC also adds, the Eagles are going to run the Tush Push on first and second down, fourth down if needed against the Packers. I got another text. This whole thing about the Tush Push is ridiculous. Any team can do it if they want. The NFL shouldn't even keep entertaining voting about this garbage. These poor teams need to just move on and find something else to complain about. Oh my gosh, you guys got me. You guys are too much fun today. Thanks to everybody for texting in. Thanks to Dave Weinberg and Rob Maaddi for joining the show. And thank you for listening on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. And see our coverage of Knicks and Pacers tonight at 7:30 on 97.3 ESPN. I'll be back tomorrow. Have a great night, everybody.
You have the choice, whether it's going out to dinner or ordering takeout at a local restaurant. Those choices help to put money back into your community. And Town Square Media South Jersey puts a spotlight on local restaurants.
Go deep at Jester's Dive Bar in Rio Grande. Jester'sDiveBar.com. Preventer Restaurant in Ventnor, a Latin American steakhouse with daily specials. Find them on Facebook. The Cheese Board is back in Central Square Linwood with Chef Justin reviving the classic flavors you love.
Thank you for supporting these great local restaurants.